Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to Imprimatura. Imprimatura is first layer, first coating. It's really important to have this for certain styles of painting, especially in classical painting, but also there's a lot of contemporary painters who also use Imprimatura. So they pre-stain their canvas either with a quick wash with turpentine, and whatever color they enjoy, or they wash it with linseed oil, which is what I use because I do not use turpentine. It's highly toxic. I don't use Sansadar. I don't use anything like that. They're all hydrocarbons that aren't good for the air environment. So I just use linseed oil extremely thinly, or in this case, I just use the paint and I apply it very thinly. So let's look at this. This is a really traditional Imprimatura. Coro, Velasquez, many painters use this pink salmon mix. So what we have at the end of the day in a limited palette, this will be your limited palette. It's not the Zorn palette. I don't believe in the Zorn palette. I believe Zorn did have other colors. I don't believe he just worked with 4 colors. And you can get a lot from it, but you don't get, for example, transparent red oxide. And in Zorn's palette, there's transparent red oxide. That's this one here, look. That's that one. Beautiful rich color, really important to Rembrandt, Velasquez, Goya, the Rubens. The painters go on and on and on. Here we have ivory black, here we have Venetian, right? Beautiful natural yellow ochre, not synthetic, right? Here we have beautiful raw umber. These are all Norma paints, they're the main paints I work with. And here you have your titanium zinc white, so it's a mix of the two. It's a little heavier as a mix. Okay, so if I want to make the salmon color, at the end of the day, the painters would have, little particles of everything left on their canvas, right? And they would take different amounts of that and combine them together to create a kind of salmon color at the end of the day. So it would just be their mix. And what you would make sure of is there isn't too much burnt sienna in there. There isn't too much black or too much Venetian. So there's the Venetian kind of taking over, look. So if I take a small amount of that and mix it in my white, it seems a bit cold to me. So what I'm going to do is grab my yellow ochre, grab a bit of my burnt sienna. I won't add any more black. Now I'll bring that into that. Now I'll bring that into the white. And there's the beginning of my kind of salmon color, look. Right? If I wanted a bit pinker, bring in your Venetian red then slowly. As I always say, Venetian red is like habanero chili. It can ruin a beautiful hot spicy meal very quickly. So you just add a little bits at a time, and it's the most amazing color to work with. So I'll grab those, and as you see, it's a slightly different color to what's there. That's okay. I don't mind it being a little warmer, right? So that's that done. So here you have 2 ways of applying it very quickly. Some people aren't aware of these little hardware tools. They would just be working with this. It'll leave loads of lines in your paint. Look, and you're like, damn it. So a way of dealing with that, if you do like working with this, is you finish very softly, very flat, with a very slight tilt on your palette knife. Okay, let's take a look at this metal one. Okay, I'll take the bigger one. So what do you think the problem is with the metal? Look at the really hard edge here. So look, it's really nice if you want to drag through. Look at that, beautiful. So you think of Adrian Genney. Yeah. Think of Gerhard Richter. But the problem is that leaves this really deep indent on the lines. And if that's not what we're looking for, maybe that isn't the one to go with. Now, Exhibit B. This is plastic. Once again, it's a spatula for working with plaster when you're filling plaster holes in a wall. And this one I found to be really beautiful to work with. So what I'm going to do is, look, because it's not metal, there's no chance of it piercing your canvas, no chance of it doing any damage. So I can grab all that paint up, because remember it had 2 tones, right? We had the more salmon one, and we had the grayer one underneath, which had a little more black. And then I'm going to mix them together really quickly. There we go. So that's a pretty nice mix. I always say to people, you know, don't be afraid of oil paint. It's just like cement. Look, there you go. Mixing some plaster or cement. There's your mix. So now I'm going to drop that in a few areas like that. Okay. Underneath is an old canvas, right? And that canvas is ivory black. So I'm just going to, you know, try and reuse this here. So this is a really nice way of getting a kind of even distribution of your paint. With the edge, just go as close as you can with the edge, but don't put tons of paint over the edge. You know, you're just wasting your paint. Bring it up to the edge. We're going to finish that with a brush. I'll show you that now. This one's probably going to be pretty thin, you know. If there's a little bit of paint, look, so because some of this is salvaged from today, bit of skin, you know, just take it out. More paint. Bring close to the edge as I can. And you'll feel really softly if it's a bit too thin. There we go, along that edge. So the edge I can just, you know, rub in along with that. Same here. And as I said, we will finish this with a brush. So you might be going, look, oh, what's the benefit of this? Well, you're backlighting your painting straight away with a refractive light that works for you. Now, it's not a glowing light. This is a big difference between doing an underpainting, which allows the white of the canvas to backlight, which is one of my favorite techniques. And if you go to East Coast Art Studios, you know, or on my Pinterest, look at underpainting. In my Pinterest, East Coast Art Studios Pinterest, you'll see underpainting. Go into that file and you'll see examples of underpainting from Leonardo da Vinci to present day painters. Maybe I'll angle this like this now, and you can see this is another way of doing your eyes. Look, lock the angle of the spatula, just rub it up and down like that. So I'm not changing the angle of this, I'm just keeping it straight, rubbing along like that. Look, rub it this or like that. If I go like that, I can still grab that excess that comes here and bring it that way then. The big thing you just want to avoid is that you're not throwing loads of excess and wasting your paint on the side of the canvas. Now I pull over that paint over the old black, turn it that way. Let's do the same here. So now I'm going to just speed it up. Look, get the technique and repeat. Right, you can see how fast the process is. Turn your canvas. The other benefit of this is that you're actually creating a kind of mirror surface. So the paint you put on this really glows, especially if you're using lead white. I don't have lead white here, but this is the thing Velázquez discovered. So Velázquez goes on his trip to Italy. Rubens has a talk with the Spanish king and says, look, let him go on a trip, because the best painters in the world were considered to be in Italy, you know, from the 1500s, 1600s. Bellini, Titian being one of the top. Caravaggio also, Imprimatura. Whole canvas, covered in a much darker one than this, by the way. Okay, so now I've done the basic application. Okay, we'll just, hold on there, we'll clean this up here. Yeah, just make sure there's no paint under there. Okay, lay that down, make sure you guys can see okay. Yeah. Okay, so now things get much more delicate, look. So now I'm going to very softly, with very little pressure, pull across the canvas. If I feel there's a deep area, I'll grab some of that paint and put it in another area, look. If you have a dark underneath, if you have a white canvas, this is very easy. If there's a dark, a little more difficult, as you can see. I don't want much coming through. So here you can really see the benefit of not using a metal spatula. I'm not getting the scrapes. See that there? Very nice. Look. If people like Sargent, really important, you know, Sargent, a lot of canvases with an grey Imprimatura underneath. And the grey is just, you know, black and white, maybe a hint of burnt umber. Burnt umber is a very important colour. I just don't use it at the moment. I'm mainly on my limited palette special 6 colour mix. That does not have burnt umber. Burnt umber can be made from burnt sienna, raw umber, tiny bit of black. If you want it hotter, you add a tiny bit of your Venetian and yellow ochre. So now look at that there. There we go. Okay, so I'll lay that down. Now I'll take this brush. This is just Create, look. Oh, sorry. This is just Create, look. You know, it's a really cheap brand. Used it yesterday. Right? So I'm now going to take that very softly, pull it along the surface like that. So when I teach painting, I use a measurement of 1 to 10 for everything. And one of the key things I measure is pressure. So I'm using a pressure of 1. Look how light I'm holding the brush. So there is no pressure being applied here. I'm letting the brush do all the work. I'm just lightly pulling through like that. And then what I do is I bend down, you can see me here, and I look at the glow on the surface. How is the light catching the integrity of the weave of the canvas? So this canvas is a reasonably tight weave. And I ask, well, is it done, or do I want to do anything else? Here I'm going along my edges, so this is going to smooth my edges. The really nice thing about that is, if you're not into, and many modern painters aren't, if you're not into frames, it's really nice to have your edges nice on your canvases, look. So I'm going along the canvas like that. And then I finish the edge straight. I don't go over the edge with the brush. That'll damage what you've just done. Just go to just the edge there, look, like that. Pull through there 1 time. Each thing is 1 time with an identical pressure. Now what we're getting is an Imprimatura that really is like a matte silk. So really, really fine finish. Over here, we're missing some paint. So I do have to do a little kind of special job on that. I'm going to take the spatula here and I get a little bit extra paint off that, look. And just a note, there's no linseed oil added. This is just the paint from the tube. And it might be a little bit tacky because it's the end of the day. You know, I've had the class today, we had a full class today of 9 people. And, you know, some of these mixes are just from their canvases, right? Okay, so once again, I go down low and I look at the canvas from the edge and I make sure I'm happy with everything. I can see there's little undulations here. I want to alter slightly so it's very even. And now I finish back down that way, look. Okay. So here's the interesting thing. So as I said, this isn't a top brush, right? You can get better brush than this. Do you see what's beginning to happen? It's beginning to separate. So what does that mean scientifically? Right? Do you see the separation? What that means is you're going to begin to get streaks. The hairs are grouping together, they're getting clumped together, and they are going to separate and leave lines. So luckily, this is done. So we'll hold it up now so you can see. I carefully hold my edges. So here, even though it's an old canvas, look, the edge is pretty nice, pretty neat. And then look at the really nice surface that we have, right? And as explained, when you paint onto that, your paint will glide on that surface in a really beautiful way. And I'll just get a quick skull canvas that I've done that was on that. So if we see this canvas here, so this is a painting done in around 40 minutes. You can actually see the video on the Instagram page. And it's just following your simple grisaille system, but in this case, there's around 5-6 tones. But if you look closely, you'll see there's an imprimatura. So on this canvas, I pre-stain the canvas. It's not as nicely done as the one I just did, because you can see a line. You can see a difference in the line there to there. Do you see that texture there? You kind of do want a flat. And but in either event, it's such a joy to paint in, because you just have this back glow that's very different than a white canvas. So yeah, look it up. Imprimatura is the word. And yeah, it's just another tool in your arsenal to help you discover new surfaces in painting. And I would say it's probably one of the most important things for abstract painters is I go through this all the time, people doing abstract here, the pre-staining of your canvas within a color field that you really enjoy. Okay, thank you very much.